Hello everyone, this is Srinivai from Acceldata Customer Success Team, and today's topic of the video is ADOC reference assets. In today's video, we'll discuss about reference assets in ADOC and how do we use ADOC reference assets as a lookup or in a lookup data quality policy. Then we'll also have a quick demo on ADOC reference asset and how to create the reference asset, how to use it in a lookup data quality policy, etc. So what is a so to begin to before we start, we'll discuss about what is ADOC lookup data quality policy. So when you um, so when you fetch data from multiple data sources, two columns of different assets may be expected to have same values. With this rule, you can perform a lookup on any column from the target asset. The lookup allows you The lookup feature allows you to compare the target's asset's column values with another asset called a reference asset columns. The reference asset has standard data, and you can check if the target column has the same standard data or if the data is inconsistent. Let me give an example of this particular data. So let's say that we have a customer table where we get the various customer records, and within the customer table we also get the country ID or the country from which the customer belongs to. Now, we have a standard table called country table. So, which this country table has a list of all the countries along with the ISO codes and the IDs for those particular countries. And this is more like a golden record or a golden record for all the countries, and which is used as a standard by the organization. Now, the customer table that is coming from the source will be will look up into this particular country table, and then the country IDs from the customer table would would be referenced and against the country table, which is a reference asset here, and then we will decide. The data quality policy is configured in such a way that it will find out that if the country ID from the customer table has standard data, if there is any inconsistencies in the data. Uh, the lookup rule in the data quality policy that we create as part of this allows you to ensure that two such related columns always have the same data stored in them. So how does it basically work? The lookup policy rule allows you to compare data from two or more columns which are part of different assets. So in our case, the customer table and the country table. Now, the column of the target table, for example, the foreign key column. Let's say the country ID of a customer table is suspected to have the inconsistent data. And the second column here, which is the reference column or the country ID of the country table, is a golden record or it is ideal data. So when you execute this policy, a lookup rule is configured in such a way that the data quality ADOC data quality rule will look up or search the values of the target column in the values of the reference column. So it basically does a database lookup, which is a concept that we usually have in most of the ETL or database side tools. If all the data in the target column is present in the reference column, then the lookup rule will give you 100% success rate. If there is inconsistencies between the data in your country table or the data in the country column, the quality score of the policy decreases as per the weightage that has been configured. You could also view the data violation section on the policy page to check the target columns data that does not match with the reference data. Now, the next thing is ADOC also gives us an option to, to select or create an asset as a reference asset. So what is a reference asset? So a reference asset is an table, a database table that serves as a baseline for comparison for other data sets using these data quality reconciliation operations. It means it is used to ensure that the data in this other data set is accurate and conforms to expected standards. Um, the example would be a lookup table which stores the data of a country table or postal codes or city names, etc., or maybe even the product names, department names. So the golden record that you create in your organization could be used as a reference asset here. Once the asset is onboarded on ADOC, we can then use it as we can update some configuration details within ADOC to use it in the lookup rules. So when we create when we enable it, there are two things that needs to be configured that needs to be considered. One is the number of records, and the other one would be the record fetch timeout. So, by default, ADOC considers that the reference asset has 10,000 records and a timeout to fetch is 60,000. However, if the reference asset columns have more or less records, then and if you feel that the default timeout that is not sufficient to fetch those particular record, then we could increase or decrease the number of records the number of records in the record fetch timeout. So increasing it will have negative impact on the performance of the lookup, the reference data fetch, and which in turn will impact the performance of your lookup. Let's now go back to ADOC UI and try to understand how does this reference data work. So for that, I let me open a data set which which I had configured, sorry, for this exercise. Within this, you can see I've created a customer table. I'll open it in a new tab and also a country table. In our scenario or our example, we will be using country table, which is a reference asset, and this country table will be looked up by customer table. So once the table is onboarded into ADOC, uh, go to settings. Under the settings, you can see an option to reference asset. So I've already set it up, and I'll be showing you what needs to be done and what needs to be checked. So you would need to toggle this and set it to enable it, which has already been done. And once we'll also have to see the number of records and then the record fetch timeout. By default, this will be 10,000, 60,000. Currently, there are no upper and lower limits with this validation check configuration timeout, but as we had discussed earlier, this needs to be configured, and this needs to be configured based on the record that we have on the table, on basically the expected record count of this particular asset. For example, a country maximum we can just set the number of records as 300 because we don't expect the country table to say go above this value. So once this is done, you could just hit a validate and save. So you can, once it is valid, you can see the status that is successful. So let me explain what happens once we validate the reference table. So once the reference table is validated, under manage policies advanced, you will see a reference validation job which will be run. You could see the reference validation job for country table that has run. You could see the execution mode was automated, the status is successful. You could also see the configuration here, which is around 9 million and 60,000. This is just to confirm that this I've set this configuration to higher value just to confirm that there is no upper limit or lower limit on the number of records that can be fetched, and it is totally configurable, and there needs to be solution based on the data on your reference table. Similarly, in case of any issues, right? So what do we do in case of any issues? So I've just created a scenario where there are issues to show it during this video. So you could see that this status is failed. You could see the configuration also. We are using default configuration. This was set to fail. So one could actually see the error here with related to this failure. In case if you don't see any, if you don't have any like if you don't have any insights into what could be the or what could be the error here, we request you to connect to us. We are supporting it on the discussion forums, and then we could help you to resolve this particular issue and also understand what would be the best configuration parameters to use this asset as a reference asset. Okay. Now coming back to the country table. So once we see the country table, the reference validation job for the country table is successful, then this table is ready to be used as a reference asset. This reference table is created and this is ready. So one more point to be noted is that once the reference asset is once we select this toggle bar to enable and create this reference table, then there is there and this reference asset or this particular asset is used in the data quality policy. There is no option to revert back and untoggle it or undo it as a reference asset. You would then need to identify the policies where this is used, and then delete it and delete or delete the rules, delete the policies, and then only you could undo this as a reference asset. Now, one more thing is a global parameter for reference asset, where you need to go to the global settings, click on asset validation schedule, and within this you could actually select uh, 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 if you want to schedule the refresh of the reference asset validation runs. So you could select the particular frequency with which at which you want to refresh this particular runs. Just to note that the global parameter that we set for reference asset validation is actually set on all the reference assets that is created on this instance. There is no way currently to filter in or filter out some of the reference assets based on type, data source, or name, etc. Now, coming back to the solution. So now once we have the reference asset created, and once we have the reference asset created, we could then go to the table where we intend to use the reference asset as. So now we see that under this customer table, it has a column called country ID, and we want to use we want to create a policy to use the reference asset in to use the reference asset as a lookup. Now, I've already created the policies. Let me edit it and show you the configuration that is used. So under rule configuration, we see that we have selected a rule type of lookup on country ID with the dimension of accuracy threshold given as 80 to 100, and I'll just edit it. You could see here that okay, sorry, you could see here that the column name country ID, the reference asset is country. So we only have one reference asset in this particular setup here. So country, the related column that we need to look up is country ID. Additionally, if you want, you could also add a filter here. So the SQL filter will be here added on the reference asset or the the country table. You could also choose to include the null values in the good records or include empty values in good records. This is more of to select to add to the weightage or to give the percentage of the data quality runs. You could also select the limits for it, the absolute, relative, and anomaly detection, so which is pretty similar to any of the other data quality rules that we run. I'm not updating the. Okay, let me update the rule as of now. Okay, so now once we create the rule, we can save it. Execution details, overall summary. Okay, just saving this policy because there is an update. Update detected. Cool. Now going back to the table, you could see the policies. You could see that the quality score for this is 54%. So that means the country ID. There is one rule which is run, and there are 50 records which are processed with the quality score of 54%. Now, a user could understand that the country IDs from the source customer table, only 54% of the data has valid country IDs, and then they can identify this as a defect in their quality, and then work with the team to fix the data coming from the source, to identify the gaps and fix the data. Going back to the slides. So this was a quick demo on using reference data, using reference assets, and using them in a lookup. We encourage you to share your questions on this topic with us via the comments on the video. You could actually connect to us with any issues with using reference assets, the solutioning on what should be the number of records, what should be the record fetch timeout. We can have a conversation with you to understand your solution and help you with setting the right configuration details. Additionally, we also need to discuss is what would be the ideal scenario where we could use a lookup, use a table as a reference asset, and use a lookup table, or what could be a option to use a reconciliation type of policy for this scenarios. If we don't see any response to this YouTube videos, then let's continue the conversation on the discussion forum in our Acceldata network portal. Thank you. Have a great day.